What? Why did start? Okay, there it is. Thank you. Why did the timer not start? I just want to test. How does the audio? No, 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 no. Now it should work. I have the mouse connected. So, um, yeah, testing the audio. Thank you. How how does how does this sound, brother? It sounds weird. I think it sounds weird. Yeah, yeah. It sounds. We have audio. The point is we have audio. It's fine. So, anyways, yeah, yeah. It works. It works. Thank you. Uh, yeah. I had like a tiny introduction to say today. Why did I get an ad for what was it? A leak seal sealant? What's the name of this thing? What? Leak sealer. Okay. Anyway, I guess I have way too many leaks or something. I don't know. Probably I have to assume that YouTube doesn't have us such a good, what is it? Uh, audio recognition tool. The thing that they utilize to like, I don't know. It's. I don't want to sound fucking schizophrenic, but yeah, the thing that they use to hear what you say, so that they recommend proper announcements to you and such. That thing. I I don't even have a car. I don't even have. Why would I need leak sealer? Anyways, the point is, here we are. Give me like we have like 5 minutes. So actually, give me 5 minutes. I literally drank all the water that I had, so I need water. That's the first thing. And yeah, thank you. Goodbye. So wow, 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 wow. What the fuck? Ah, I didn't mute. Thank you. Sorry. I didn't. I actually, yeah. I kind of forgot that I have to mute uh, myself. Anyway, um, where so brother. Uh, so what's up? We have like a minute. What can I do in a minute? Nothing. So wait. What? Okay. I don't have the rights to utilize this image, but this thing about the internet being a free place, um, I have it saved on my PC, so probably I shouldn't use it, right? It's like bad taste. When you grab an image that isn't yours and you kinda have it there without having asked the proper person, I even know Ace. I should ask him. It's anyways. I will have the image for like one instance, then probably never again. Just like any other image, I can change it instead of having this one. Why do I have to think so much about it? But so that it gets uh, so that it stays on camera, quote unquote, and then this gets utilized to say that I indeed am somebody who steals the soul of other people, the works of someone else. That you have the image. It's not even an image. It's a GIF. But wait, browse. Can I? Is there a good image? I guess I have one. I should have one. The issue is also knowing which one. I I I I have them not named, so I have a hard time navigating these files. Don't I have an easy place to find images? What is this? What? What is this image? Why do I have this image? Okay, it works. Thank you. Uh, also, I should probably move myself. Yeah. Give me a second. We have like too much. No, I have to move myself. I have to move the text. Thank you. There we go. Wow. Wow. Epic. Okay, now for real. Good evening. Uh, Here we are on what is it today? On a Tuesday. Here we get to be. We have philosophy today, so yeah, I don't know. It's literally just me talking as always. So, text. I don't know. I have some text to say, like before actually starting. I don't think it actually matters that much. I guess it's as always. I forgot to take my pills. That's something. Give me a second. But no, I was saying that yeah, we have philosophy, and one of the many topics that we ended up landing on was like this one, the one that isn't on the title, on the stream title, that one, on the stream slash video title, that one, the one that is on screen, literally. I don't know. Is it necessary for me to always explain the same thing? The one we do things in a certain way. So one of the many ways in which we organize the different topics that we're going to talk about is you can also find the topics which we end up utilizing to discuss things are divided in two sections. The first one are the ones that are on the title directly, the one that you see before you click on the stream, that one, or that you find. The one that is on the title of the video itself, that title is one of them, of the holders for the ideas and for the topics. The other one is the second text space campus area that is literally above me. Me being in this case cute potato. So yeah, that text represents another thing that we have to talk about. And yeah, in this case, we have something like incredibly complex. I it's not truly complex. It's more like as long as we try to properly talk about it, it becomes complex to some degree. Not because, or yeah, let's say like this. It's hard to talk about because it mixes way too many things. It has like three different ideas inside of one, and it is the unison of those three to reach a conclusion. And I guess the issue is moving rapidly enough through all of those concepts on one hand, while on the other, um, being clear enough. That's the issue with that one. The other two are, compared to this one, I guess 1,000 times easier in this case, so I don't have to worry about the other two. But yeah, today, I have to say that because it's a preamble. Basically, it means that this one that is far more complex is going to be, to be the first one that we are going to be talking about today, not the ones found directly in the title. So yeah, I prefer to do it that way now. Yeah. Today, just in case, mostly because that's a good idea. I always comment something along those lines to some degree, even if it is unavoidably me literally just talking here. Yeah, it still requires some mental capacity, I guess, to properly form coherent sentences that contain any understandable idea. So I don't want to leave it for the last one, the hardest topic. It's like, what is it? You eat the vegetables first before moving on with your food. Something along those lines. So yeah, for that reason, we're talking about that one. It's in the title. The topic is the eternal, comma, the transcendent, comma, and the possible. And it's like the unison of those three. But yeah, that's the topic for today. Something else? No, I think that's the only note that I really had to say, I guess. Yeah, I kind of forgot. I did once again a schedule, and I kind of forgot to pin that. It doesn't matter. It's we are right here, so at the very least, I showed up. That's enough. To some degree, that's enough. No need to make a schedule for anything else. I am happy with this so far. So we're going to be focusing on this. The point is, we have things to talk about today. So let me take my pill, and after that, I guess we start. But yeah, that's I guess the only thing to actually that matters. Besides that, I don't know. Yeah, I noticed something, but I guess I don't know. Time passes so fast. Something along those lines. I noticed that the microphone I have like a whole story with this microphone, and I can't hold it. How do you say it? I I ho- I hold the mic basically. That's the basic explanation. I don't have a mic stand. I don't like to have one. It's not that I don't have one. I don't like to use it. It's like way too uncomfortable to be sitting so straight and having to be so bent towards the mic. So it's like 10 times easier to have the mic in my hand. I am literally just talking in cases like this one, so I don't actually need the mic stand. So, why am I saying this? I noticed that the microphone is. I don't know how you say it on English. When it is like losing the paint, it's like losing its colors. It's something along those lines, but yeah, I guess it hasn't broken yet, the audio itself, so we should be fine. I believe it that we should be fine. It, I think it didn't cost that much. It wasn't also cheap, as far as I remember, but I don't know. It wasn't a professional audio mic, anyways. So I hope it lasts. I let's say like this. I am clarifying that just in case, just as an excuse. If it breaks down, I I gave some signs away that it might have been breaking down. I didn't keep it to myself in this case. I did see something weird happening. Like I don't know how many mics tend to lose their paint, but also yeah. On the other hand, unavoidably, I don't know that many people that actually hold their microphones like me. Most probably, if you utilize microphones this way, it ends up damaging the paint more. Something along the lines of, oh yeah, because your hands sweat and because the human sweat is corrosive and whatnot. But yeah, the point is, we have to trust that it isn't going to break down. Thank you. So, besides that, something else? No, I think we don't have actually anything else to add. No, yeah, we're fine. So, let me start. Let me start. Actually, as always, this is this is philosophy 101. No, no. This is just me talking. I don't know. The only clarification, I guess, as always, maybe even if the ideas themselves don't sound all that coherent, at the very least, assume that they might be wrong so hard that you are willing to prove them wrong. Something along those lines, I guess. Anyways, let me start. I said it before. We have like a way too long show ahead of us today, so let me begin. The first one, the first thing to talk about today actually is yeah this thing. I already described it. It's the title that you can find above my head. What does it say? Good question. It says the transcendental, the eternal, and the possible. What does that talk about? What are we even trying to think about when I am not clear enough sometimes. I have to accept that. So, what's the point of this discussion? Um, I don't even remember exactly where. Uh, if you see me enough, you will learn that yeah, sadly I am not all that good with references to other people, but yeah. The point is there are different categories of stuff throughout the world that get to become quite important for anybody. Let's say like that. And the issue is not that they exist in terms of oh yeah. We have different categories and we have different things to think about and different types of structures to utilize our time when we have to yeah try to think about anything at all. Rather, in this case, we are trying to talk about, yeah, you know what? We have in reality itself something very funny that happens, that is when we come to the world, let's say, once once the person has to confront the world, or has to live in the world, not just confrontation, but rather having to exist in the world, that makes something quite apparent in terms of, particularly in the area of, yeah, I realized that I exist. I become aware of my own existence. I realized something also, that is my own mortality. One of the many adventures throughout life that anybody has to go through is the realization that, yeah, in many ways, I sadly have an ending to myself. And one of the most common aspects of life is, therefore, unavoidably, this area of, wow, I am not going to be an eternal being. At least so far, we supposedly are, at least right now, not in the time frame in which we get to live eternally, as human consciousness hasn't finally reached the maximum point of its existence, so to speak, or at least the point in which we are finally capable of avoiding that, I guess, eternal issue of understanding that there is this thing called death, in which we unavoidably lose ourselves, and in which we end up not being anymore, at the very least in this plane. The theory doesn't matter. I am not trying to discuss what comes after. That's not the point, I guess. I don't focus that much on that. Um, the point in itself is, yeah, unavoidably, the human has to confront in many ways the aspect of its own mortality. And one of the many ideas, one of the many ways in which anybody gets to, I wouldn't say cope, I would say handle properly the process of understanding that, yeah, at some point we all cease to be, is through the realization that unavoidably, in the act of existence, of limited existence that all of us get to go through, there is this aspect of, despite me as a person having a limited life, I could always try to create something. And that's the, I guess, the initial stage of something that both transcends my own self, because it stops being just me in some way. Let's say like this: all the ideas that I get to have are always bound to be mine, not because unavoidably the ideas themselves are bound to the person who thought about them first, but rather because, as long as I don't talk out any of the concepts that I understand, they matter zero for the rest of the world. And one of the many sad realizations of this is then I needed, so to speak, to transcend my own singularity to be capable of, in some way, utilizing my own, I wouldn't say energy, it goes more along the lines of my own essence, so that the rest of the world also gets to have something for it through my own actions. That's in a very rudimentary manner, one of the most simple ways to think out transcendence. The initial state is to transcend the, once again, the egoistic aspect of the person. This, I don't know which other term applies. Let's say like this. For example, something that you can easily find that once you reach more modern philosophy, for example, is this idea of, oh wow, yeah, we live in a very individualistic society. In order to be capable of attaining something that might live longer than the self, it's necessary to transcend the boundaries of the individual, so that we can start thinking about those things which get to last. Not because one person makes sure that they do, but rather because, so to speak, the rest of the world is capable of absorbing them onto their own essence. You can complicate the thought in ways of like, oh yeah, yeah. You can the creations that you get to trust. Let's say like this: the creations that transcend yourself can become then guaranteed to exist throughout the world by this idea of institutionalization. Anything that gets to become certified by societies themselves is, in a way, something that has transcended the first person who ever thought about that. But that is, I wouldn't say exactly a bizarre interpretation, it's just a way too abstract one. The concept, the basic idea is, yeah, the first stage lies in the process of living. The person has to confront their own mortality. In the process of confronting that and being capable of, so to speak, embarking on the unavoidable journey towards death, to be capable of accepting that, at the very least, we try. I, I don't have the complete capacities as to understand why, but yeah, through different reasons, let's say like this, different choices become available to us, and one of the most easy ones to take for anyone is then the path towards the transcendence of the personal aspect. I can stop thinking about just my own existence, and I can try then to look at the rest of the world, and I can at that point think about what can I do so that it lasts after I am gone. The issue then, that's the second part of this idea. The issue then becomes, wow, can I actually transcend myself and create that's the second category, something that becomes eternal? It's it's a matter of, in many ways, one of the sad realities of anything that has transcended the first person who thought about any idea is how in the world ideas are always evolving. It's I'm not saying it as a oh wow yeah yeah, but the sad reality is ideas keep on evolving no matter what. It's just the reality of societies have a tendency towards discarding the things that they don't need anymore, not because they actually need to discard everything that they are not utilizing, but for the sake of efficiency. We have quite a lot of traditions that throughout time we end up discarding because they stop serving any particular purpose to us. And sadly, what has transcended the person, what has become a tradition throughout societies, becomes then discarded, and unavoidably, anything that has been discarded, it's sort of implicit in that same state, stops being something that remains on eternity. To some degree, the analysis that you can perform at this stage then becomes, oh, well, yeah. But at the very least, we understand the older things which we abandoned, the older traditions that we had that we don't utilize anymore, and the older things that have been left behind for the sake of even better ones. Like, I don't know, we don't live in such feudal societies nowadays, but we still can talk about them, and we can look at our past and we can make sense out of that. And at least in our memory, they are eternal constructs that we can refer ourselves to and that anybody can access by possessing an interest big enough to explore all the archives of knowledge that are out there. But I, it's not such a complicated thesis. The sad reality is we have way too many inventions of that same degree ideas. The, what we are trying to talk about here is idea. Any kind of concept, any kind of idea gets to be in quote unquote immortalized by being preserved. But the sad reality is, it trust doesn't truly matter. There might be, let's say like this, there might be a cure for a disease that has kept on evolving throughout time, lost in the annals of history, because we don't know what is all the information available out there, and we don't have the capacity to explore all the things that have been archived. And yeah, to some degree, knowledge is eternal, to some other, unavoidably, if we cannot truly make usage of what is it that we want. It doesn't matter how much it gets to last. It's like, let's say like this, in a, to not complicate so much the conversation. Once again, looking at a person, it doesn't matter how many tools are available at your hand. If you don't understand at all what you have in front of you, let's say like this, if you are just a little kid who doesn't understand the world at all, it doesn't matter if you get to have the most advanced supercomputer of the world, or if you get to have the best connection towards all the things that you ever desired, so that the entirety of internet is available to you somehow. No, it doesn't matter. The point is, even if things are preserved, they are not truly immortalized and made eternal in a way in which it truly creates an impact. The issue is the category of those eternalized things, concepts, is quite a risky one. Why? Because it entails then something that can truly be applied through all the eras of life. And I guess I remember hearing something about this. I don't fully agree with that posture, but it helps a little bit to think out. Yeah, with the process of thinking about this, it's quite a humbling act for anybody to think that the creations that they get to make get to serve a particular purpose only in a very specific era and nothing more than that. That no matter what we can create, nothing gets to be eternal. In a way, it's far easier for the person to try to get a grip over the notion that, yeah, we have the category of the, once again, that which transcends the personal life of the person. I get to be myself happy, okay, but I can also transcend my own individuality. I can think about the rest of the world, and I can try to do something then that doesn't make just me happy, that doesn't give myself a little bit of satisfaction or ease, that can also do the same for the rest of the world. The issue is, it's far easier for me, if I have to be honest, it's far easier for me to understand that it doesn't matter which thing I can actually come up with. It might never become truly an eternal embodiment of knowledge or a piece of the history of humanity that will never again be moved, than to truly spend my life trying to find something which then can truly become eternal. That's that's where this third category enters. So I wouldn't say it's in itself not truly a category. It's something that lies in the. It's a little bit more complicated than just a third category, because it does apply to both already of the existing ones, which is the possibilities themselves. And that's why I was saying the thing which is possible is a far more complicated thing. I'm not trying to make it as abstract. I am not trying to imply anything along the lines of oh yeah, the real and the ideal and whatnot. Keeping it simple. Keeping it simple. The possibility to accomplish things in the most basic analysis doesn't actually lie in, let's say, the most complicated forms of the ideas themselves, but rather it remains in the hands of the person who is capable of thinking out anything at all. A, a very basic conception of, oh yeah, yeah, I can look towards somewhere, I can aspire towards some certain thing that I might be capable of. Once again, after having transcended my own boundaries, after having, let's say like this, I get to be happy. Then I can look outwards. I can aspire to do something that might not make just me myself happy. At that point, as long as I can realize or I can observe anything that might possess an actual utility, then that thing, just because I can idealize and I can picture something that is already a possible thing. The issue is, it's okay. Let's try some steps back. It's a very easy concept if you remember things like what Plato talks about, for example. It's the world of ideas. The world of ideas talks about things in potentiality. Anything that might be already is in some way. The issue is, can we actually commit ourselves to making things from the potential of their existence into the actuality of their existence? Let's say like this. I can realize that something might transcend myself, might possess an utility. Can I actually commit towards the completion, the creation, and, so to speak, the solidification of this notion in the world in a way in which it actually possesses an impact in any area of the world. It doesn't matter where. Or can I just think that it might be possible, but in the face of trying to make it possible, say, nah, yeah, you know what? I don't actually give a single fuck about this. I, I don't actually want to commit myself to this. It might be way too much complicated. It might be way too hard for me to actually try to aspire towards any of those things. Therefore, I might as well. And that's why I was trying to utilize this sort of language. I can retract to myself, I can abandon the idea of transcending my own mortality, transcending my own personal existence, and I can just keep on living once again in a singular life, in a very individualistic way of thinking about the world, and that's it. It doesn't mean that it is bad. I am not trying to exact any kind of judgment right now. I'm just saying, yeah, you can actually think about it in a way in which it does get to be made from the possibility of its own existence into the actuality of its true existence in the world, in the reality. At that stage, it does matter. But once again, it's not just the analysis of the thing which is possible, also the thing which transcends myself, but also it does unify the possibility with the notion of the eternal. That's that's something that does require a little bit more time to understand, because I tried to explain that before. In some ways, I can actually observe. The easiest solution is, okay, once I am trying to aspire towards anything that solves the equation or that gives me the gratification of knowing that I have finally transcended my own mortality. I have created something for the world that will make it a better place. Can I actually ensure that the thing which I create will have an everlasting impact on the world, or will it just solve about the life of one person? Let's thinking about it in examples is I can transcend my own self. I can give somebody a fish to eat, but isn't it better to teach somebody how to fish rather than to just give them one fish? That whole idea. The idea is, can I actually have something that does have an everlasting impact? It's far harder to not only be capable of conceiving anything of that sort, but once again, the issue is we're trying to talk about something that mostly has to do with the realizations that come with the actual actions themselves that anybody tries to take towards these goals. It sounds simple enough to say, yeah, you know what? At some point, you will realize unavoidably that it might be nigh impossible for you to transcend from just the basic stage of, oh wow, yeah, I am somebody that cares about the rest of the world. I am somebody that is trying to do something that lasts or that has an impact on the world, onto I'm somebody who's trying to create a sufficient enough impact on reality so that my name, for example, becomes eternal. Can that be a realization that I have? And can I actually face, once I have the desire, the reality of it might be impossible for me to accomplish this desire of mine? Can I actually overcome the difficulty or not? Once again, in words it sounds easy. The issue is, in many cases, once the person is capable of, so to speak, not looking just towards oneself, aiming to be for others anything that might be positive, and giving to the world something that might add to what I described before, the already existing knowledge that might make things easier. In that, inside of that category, there is also an issue of, can I realize that the thing which I create might not have such an everlasting impact? And that is the issue here. If I do so, if I realize that what I make isn't going to be as important, can I actually keep on working towards making my efforts matter? Once again, I used the word before, humbling. It's not exactly humbling. It's quite a terrifying realization for the person to see that, yeah, think about it like this. Today, I sit here talking about this notion, and both you and me understand the words, but if 1,000 years from now, somehow, we have lost access to this basic type of language which unifies both my expressions and your understanding, which is English, anything that has been expressed will matter no more. No matter how much we can try to say, oh yeah, you know what, this thing will be solidified through the eras, because now with the tools that the internet brings to us, anything gets to be saved somewhere, even if I don't make sure that it gets saved at some place. There is already enough services making sure that this happens, and there are enough things working in favor of this particular no, there are still things that put at risk the task of, if I have to aspire towards the complete eternalization of my creation itself, how much do I actually have to work? How much do I actually have to sacrifice myself in order to truly accomplish that status of becoming, depending on the field, becoming a foundational piece of knowledge, becoming a classic, as it happens with many of the authors who had to make a sufficient enough theory, becoming a, a theorem which is impossible to remove from the fields of mathematics. Such pieces of knowledge are not so easy to find. And I'm not, once again, I'm not trying to aim towards, oh yeah, and you know what? Because then the human might have a hard time aiming towards the that state, that final stage of eternalness. It might as well be far more feasible for anybody to just aim towards transcending the basic level. And once again, you better give fishes to people rather than to teach them how to fish. No, I'm just saying, it's hard. Objectively speaking, it's hard. More so, that's that's where the more in-depth analysis of the world in which we live nowadays comes in handy. Yeah, more so because we have 7 billion other people existing besides us. It's no more just a competition of me having to find something that removes my own selfness from the equation. I also have to create something that, when it enters in discussion with what all the other people in this world might state, doesn't get invalidated instantly. And I have to do so not only right now, but once again, I have to do that throughout a possibly infinite length of time so that my knowledge then can truly be constituted as a maximum. And sadly, that's where post-modernity is quite depressing. Sadly, we are not in such an early stage of knowledge. It's not so easy to say anything just out of nowhere, and just state things so rapidly so that, or discover the basics of anything. If knowledge of that sort, if ideas of that kind try to be discovered, they're arrived at and properly explained, the possibility is there, but it might as well require, that's what I was trying to say before, an entire life of work and true dedication to accomplish that. Nowadays, the prospect of eternalizing that which transcends my own self is the task of an entire life. It's not something that happens by accident suddenly. It's something that truly requires far more interest than ever before. But on the other hand, I guess, the implicit message still is unavoidably. It can, we are still in time so that anybody can, as long as they understand enough which space in which they want to truly work on, that they are willing to truly utilize their time in doing so, and then commit themselves to the exploration of that whole area so that the knowledge gets created and the new additions get to remain. As long as that happens with enough consistency, it could happen that anybody might as well still be in time so that eternalization, so to speak, is feasible enough for anybody. But the concept is, the bar is quite high. It's not just like, oh yeah, I don't know, today I will sit under a tree and just because an apple falls on my head, I will realize, oh yeah, we don't still possess proper measurements for this thing which we call levitas or gravitas. We need to still explain stuff more in depth. We have way too much knowledge in many areas. So, anyways, the point is, trying to sum up everything. The person gets to see that they exist. In the process of seeing that we exist, sadly, human consciousness as a, I wouldn't say a prerequisite, but rather an unavoidable experience nowadays in this current world is the realization of also that we have to lose, as in we have to die at some point, and for the sake of not having to suffer so much, the unavoidability itself of death, then comes the stage of okay, I might try to create something that doesn't die with me. The issue becomes, can I understand also that most of the creations that are made by anyone who also possesses or reaches this conclusion are finite, and that if I want to truly create something that becomes timeless, so to speak, I need to sacrifice myself for the actual pursuit of that thing, but it is still just a process of consciousness, so to speak. It's the process of enough time invested in the realization of that, and it's enough time then invested either on the, the acceptance of that fact, and never again having to question what I described before. You can live a happy life, you sort of return to the cave after realizing that, yeah, maybe your efforts are going to have a not so lasting impact on the world. Maybe, thinking about it like this, you get to wish tomorrow that the entire world becomes happy, and that gets to be true for the next day, and after that, we all go back into misery, but you to some degree accomplished your goal. Or, on the other hand, it can actually be that then the person has to truly sacrifice themselves in order to accomplish that thing which guarantees, I guess, the basic human question of how is it that we can attain eternal happiness or something of that sort, you know? But yeah, I guess that's in a very basic manner the whole description of what I was talking about, the eternal, the transcendent, and the possible. Everything might be possible. It is possible to not reach anything that is eternal. It is possible to not even transcend the limits of oneself, so to speak, to not transcend this individualistic sense of existence, to stay in the most basic mode of analysis and understanding about reality. It's completely possible, but also it is still, we still have enough time to work towards the completion of both of those stages. And in itself, what I was what I defined before also is, in many ways, most things, we are in an era in which we haven't fully understood this notion of things that exist ideally. We might as well still have far more possibilities than what we can actually realize just because we are capable of thinking about them, so to speak. I trying to not waste or to define something that still has been so incredibly undefined. No matter how much philosophy spends its time thinking about this stuff, and the philosophers unavoidably, it seems possible, at least to me, one of the many hidden conclusions is, in some ways, those things which get to be thought about are still achievable, not just in the level of, oh wow, yeah, trust in your dreams, but rather in the level of the human intellect is capable of picturing so much. The issue is actually finding a way in which the person gets to truly make those ideas come true. But in itself, at least right now, possibilities are far more existent, then they are unavailable to us. The issue is, once again, getting to understand that things are that way rather than to ever leave the area of, oh, wow, yeah, yeah, you know what? I have to try and think about something that works for me. It might take too much fucking time. I will, once again, just stay in my basic level of satisfaction. Fuck the rest of the world. Let me, I don't know, play something and never again look out there because don't truly need to concern myself with others. I don't know. I said it before. I wouldn't exactly claim that it is the most correct manner. I'm just saying it's one of the possible ways of coping with the realization of death itself. I guess, yeah, to some degree, you can also never make peace with that fact and keep on avoiding that realization so that you don't have to live with that fear, I guess. That's the easiest way to think about stuff. How evasion of the problem and in itself also the negation of its existence makes the life of people far easier because you don't have to actually confront things in that way, or you can fully engage with that fact and try to make it out of that confrontation alive and more invigorated in a way in which it actually matters. I guess that's the point. Anyway, let me drink something. Thank you. It didn't take me that much. I didn't even take an hour, so we are fine. But yeah, that's the first level. I said it before. That's sorry, not the first level. That's the first area. Um, I don't know. Probably as I started that topic with that. It's a very basic analysis. Once again, there are many things that you can actually analyze. There are many ways in which you can try to understand it. I am just uh, an easy. I guess it's sort of a negative way to describe it, but unavoidably, I do feel like it is a quite a cop out, so to speak. Yeah, it's a very simple level of analysis because to actually find a complete solution, another explanation of this thing is to do something that hasn't been truly achieved right now. Why? To some degree, for example, that notion of yeah, you know what? It might matter, it might not matter. You can also go back. Sadly, philosophy isn't capable enough of understanding, at least right now, which thing is the correct one, no matter how much philosophers have thought about the stuff to some degree. Ethics are not capable of covering things to this second degree of knowledge and this much. We have some understanding. We are not fully capable of understanding everything that we think out sometimes. But um, I do subscribe to that other philosophy of the psychological way. At the very least, you get also to plant some roots, some seeds about these ideas, and just with that already, you have a lot of the work done. As long as you don't forcibly remove these notions from your head, they can keep on evolving. As long as you can cherish the ideas that are given to you by the rest of the world, at some point you might find, even if it is unconsciously, or yeah, even if it is not directly, but by consciously utilizing your whole existence thinking about that, by leaving it to your unconscious mind, you can at some point reach a conclusion that feels satisfying enough. That's also why it's, even if it isn't an the most in-depth analysis, it's already good. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think I did cover everything now. Now for real. Out of this. In a second. Let me, one second. Let me drink water for a second time, just in case. And after that, yeah. Moving on to the second topic, I guess. Okay. No, yeah. I think I don't have anything else to add. So, trusting my intuition. Moving on. Moving on to the second base, second stage, second two. Sorry, but yeah. Um, what is it even? Surrendering to change is the second topic. Okay, I guess I don't actually have that much of a hard time. Yeah. When ideas are not so complicated, it's far easier to talk about them. Actually, wow, who would have thought about that? It's not. It's like, yeah, you don't have to talk about that directly, something that we don't even fully understand. How easy it is to talk about that then. Wow. But no, obviously. Anyway, sorry. Moving on. We are on the stage of, yeah, this thing called, so I call that surrendering to change. It's, let's start with this. Already in the previous one, I did mention something about this current world, current time frame in which we live, called post-modernity. I also saw a weird denomination lately, not lately, recently, that was meta-modernity. Did we already change eras yet again? I I love so much how fast is everything moving. Ah, it's the proper description is, yeah, accelerationism at its finest. But anyways, the point is, at least to my understanding, we are still in post-modernity. We haven't changed eras right now. So what is happening? There is something that has become quite normal. It has been normalized, therefore, that is the, I wouldn't say impermanence of the subjects. It's one of the most basic reductions that you can find out this idea. Surrendering to change is something that tries to talk about we as people have to be capable of understanding that unavoidably, in many ways, the world is in a constant transformation and renewal. That's, at this point, it does matter to talk about this idea of, yeah, post modernity. Why? One of the most important notions that influenced the modern times was this idea of deconstructionism. No, not, I'm not going to talk about the entirety of that. I'm not going to aim towards a complete explanation. But what has the most importance in this topic is, yeah, sadly, or I want to call it actually something sad. You think about it. It's might probably not be possible if we didn't have something like that for people like me to hear. So, anyway, the point is, thanks to how in previous eras everything was so regulated, normalized, and so to speak, encapsulated in its particular compartments within societies, within the world in its entirety, things were so rigid that slowly the freedoms of forms were being lost. What this means and what this brought onto the world was the necessity to bring down those constraints to finally, once again, allow people to be capable of thinking far more freely. One of the many revolutions that happened, so to speak, at the quote unquote intellectual level was the realization that, yeah, somehow we started to live, or not that we started, we have always been living with so many traditions and norms and accepted parts of our world without ever questioning them. And sadly, deconstruction and the whole movement of deconstructionism brought forward something incredibly crazy that was how we started to doubt not just me as a person, ourselves, what we are, but the entirety of what surrounds societies themselves and all of its constituent parts, to the point to which all the preconceived notions became subjects of discussion and became things to think about in a way in which now it was accepted for us to be doubtful about truly everything. It was, once you read things, you find it as the Cartesian. Is it Cartesian? I think they use Cartesian. The thoughts that Descartes had about, oh yeah, I think for therefore I am, brought to the extreme in which everything gets doubted, but not just philosophical ideas. Even those institutions which seemed to be functional get to be doubted. That's the way in which you can read out that more or most easily when you have to think about how, oh yeah, post modernity and the philosophical thinking impacted the world. Okay, then, unavoidably, what happens once you start to ask questions is realizations come forward. Once that happens, is things start unavoidably to change in any direction. I'm not trying to postulate here that, oh yeah, yeah, things are slowly changing for the better, or oh wow, we are so doomed. No, 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 no. I'm just saying things change. Once you become aware about the stuff, suddenly the way in which you relate to something changes. It is one of the most fundamental ways about reality itself. Sadly, once you understand the things that surround you, you don't live so blinded and so under the veil, so to speak. So you start to see more how you can interact with the rest of reality. And with that realization comes, yeah, the realization itself of, wow, and if everything is available for me to doubt, if anything is something that I can be thinking about, isn't everything susceptible to change? Isn't the entire world which surrounds me something that tomorrow might not be here anymore, so to speak? Isn't, in a certain way, and that's the issue with following the tradition of Descartes, isn't reality itself quite a fragile thing? Or the reality that I am used to knowing as of right now? Such a fragile thing? Sadly, yeah. But on the opposite hand, the more you can actually understand such an statement, the more you can actually also be capable of handling that realization. The more you can see how the issue is things can change, but it needs to be a motivated change. And in many cases, the sad realization is I am not capable of realizing that things are changing until they are actually unavoidably already being modified, or I cannot see that something might change until somebody else has done that for me. I need to see things be modified out there before I can actually see that this structure, which I used to be so secure about, can now truly be modified and can truly be repurposed. But it also means in this modern world, or in this current world, there is nothing far more freeing than the realization that, yeah, I do possess the opportunity to actually learn about all the things which surround me so that if changes have to be motivated, I get to be the one that motivates those changes before, once again, I have to suffer the consequences of changes in directions that might not be desired from me. That's, once again, postmodernity in itself is something that does a lot of work in the minds of the current human beings, so to speak, so that we can get to talk out these notions. The issue is it also does quite a. I think this the expression is lackluster, something like that. It does an incredibly poor job, basically, at properly explaining that, yeah, not because everything can change, therefore everything is out of our control. Not, unavoidably, not that I am saying, oh yeah, aim to control the entirety of reality. No, 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 no. I'm just saying, the point is also sadly that things can actually be modified in ways in which we get to be satisfied with those modifications. And in a way, there is nothing better to be capable of accepting change than to see that you can also be a part of that, rather than to be tormented by the notion that things might not be anymore like they used to be. Far better to make something even better in itself, because you're making sure that, oh yeah, in the process it might not be at all ever again the same thing that it used to be before. Like, for example, today I don't get to be the same person that I was before, because today I'm changing my own essence as a human being. I am changing how much I know about the world. I am changing how much I am capable of dealing with in this reality. And yeah, I am changing, but I am changing for the better, and I am capable of changing in a motivated manner by my own will instead of being forced to change by something else out there. And it's the acceptance of the change that makes it work, not the complete opposition to it that allows the mind to be freed, so to speak. Now, I have probably moved way too fast, so give me a second to actually think about what is it that I am missing. No, yeah, I don't think it's all that complicated to some degree. It's just that, yeah, just in a way, if change is an unavoidable factor of life. Once again, post-modernity made change an essential part of existence that, at least in Spanish, there is uh, an expression. I don't know it, or I don't know the one that does this work on English, but it goes something along the lines of, yeah, in the end, everything changes so much that the only thing which never changes within all of that is change itself, because that is the only constant throughout time, that things are bound to change. That's what post modernity has left us with right now. So it's far easier for us to understand that, yeah, if I have to see change as an integral part of my being, if I have to become aware of that in a way in which it works for me instead of against me, then I might as well also try to integrate this notion in a way in which I get to be happy about that and not tormented by the realization of, oh wow, yeah, yeah, tomorrow things might be different. Tomorrow, the world that I used to know might no longer be anymore. It's better to just accept that, yeah, if it gets to be different, I can at least be part of that change. I can at least be a participant in that and not, let's say it like this, let's propose it like this. The issue becomes change is something that you can see as either a good or a bad thing, and in many ways, what, and in that case, yeah, I do want to express it like that. Postmodernity does a bad job at expressing is that you can, or that it's actually good for you to stay in the side of those things which, when change comes, are destroyed because you decided to adhere to tradition. Not, and not, I'm not saying particularly that the tradition is bad. I'm just utilizing the phrase to exemplify that, yeah, things of old change. Things that we used to be attached to get removed. And in the process, also a part of us can be gone. Us ourselves can be destroyed by the society in the action of trying to enact those changes, so to speak. But it doesn't matter as much. What matters far more is this reality of, but also, I don't need to be tormented by the notion of change. Once again, everything is in constant change. To some degree, the issue is we say that postmodernity did that job as if that hasn't been the case throughout the entirety of human existence. We don't live anymore in huts, we don't live anymore in castles, we don't live anymore in rural areas. The world, societies have always been changing. We don't live anymore with just old antenna telephones. Now we have smartphones. We don't live with analog clocks. Now we have smartwatches. We don't have even in just cars. We have intelligent and self-driving cars. Everything changes. Everywhere there is change. Why should we accept to stay in the most tormented part of this? Because, yeah, the point is, to some degree, unavoidably talk about, yeah, it's far. worse to say, oh yeah, but you know what? I am attached to this thing because I like it so much and because I think it's useful. Unavoidably, I have things that I love that I wish they didn't abandon this world. There are things that change in itself. The way in which the wholeness of the world is modified makes a part of the human essence, so to speak, be lost. Once again, I sort of said that before. A part of us will unavoidably be destroyed in the process of removing everything that at once we used to like. At some point in time previously, we used to think about as a positive thing, yeah, but unavoidably at the same time, it doesn't need to be the entirety of the person. It's far easier to let go of those things which we liked than to be destroyed in our entirety. If anything, the realization that yeah, change is has become the unavoidable part of life. Change is as unavoidable as death nowadays. Therefore, I between choosing to die than to change, I will rather continue changing in order to keep on existing, even if it is just for one day more. That is far better. And once again, because yeah, I can also keep on thinking about everything else that does matter to me. If I have just one thing that if it were to be changed, my whole world will be destroyed, I might have not thought about anything at all. I might have not created enough realizations about this universe to understand that, yeah, I'm not just one thing, one idea, one notion, one part of me. I can have a little bit of complexity, I can have a little bit of nuance. My own soul doesn't need it to be something subject or subjected to just one part of life. I can have, I can give myself the privilege of being far more than just this part. Therefore, I might as well do so. Because, yeah, if the proposition is change has to be the constant, then, yeah, in that same process, I can diversify my own essence as much as I can to guarantee that it doesn't get to suffer as much, you know? Otherwise, once again, destruction because I decided to go against the change. I don't know, bro. I think it's quite a negative thing. And yeah, before I have to hear out this thing 5 years from now, but if it means that you're willing to always change, then you're a spineless person. You don't have any common sense. You're abandoning ethics. No, something something funny that happens is we do come from philosophy. There is a little bit of common sense there that does remain. Sadly, the proposition of ethics, the proposition of understanding about anything that has to do with epistemology is the realization that, yeah, to some degree, we cannot abandon absolutely everything. It is meaningless to be willing to throw literally all things out just for the sake of change. Postmodernity proposes that we should be interested in always changing for the better. But the realization is that, yeah, some things don't need to be modified. I don't need to actually, if I can reach a proper agreement, a proper understanding, a proper realization about something along the lines of, wow, yeah, controversial idea. Maybe we don't need to kill people. Maybe we don't need to fucking decide to murder one another. Wow. It's such a crazy novel idea, but yes, maybe we can reach such an agreement in terms of ethics. And yeah, if something like that can become established, unavoidably, we all have the right to question that certainty. There is no need for any certainty because to make things completely unobservable, undoubtable, unquestionable makes us lose flavor and makes the person who is truly interested in making this place a better place, this life that every single one of us gets to share as long as we're alive in this planet, worse one, as long as that is not existent, then yeah, we suffer. So it's true that we have the right to doubt, but it doesn't mean that everything will always change. It's I do tend to be a little bit extremist when I am explaining stuff sometimes. I'm not saying abandon absolutely everything. I don't know. Unavoidably. At some point you realize that you need to have some principles, but uh, I guess that comes later on down the line once you can realize what are those things, and also to some degree how can you actually navigate the situation of wow, yeah, I might be told to a scenario, fictional scenario. I might be told that I need to, I don't know, kill somebody else. Self. Let's go for the easy solution. For the already given one from the side of psychology. Sorry, I need to kill somebody else or kill myself. Am I going to truly be altruistic and say, "Oh yeah, the other person needs to live"? In most cases, we do have a self-preservation instinct, so I might say, "Yeah, you know what? I'm going to kill somebody else." And even more, if I am just talking about hypotheticals, I can far more easily say, yeah, you know what? If I have to, if I am forced to, I might be willing to do so. Mostly because lying is still possible. That's the issue. That's a different discussion. Not the one that we're going to have right now. But yeah, sometimes you do learn that unavoidably lying is a solution for things, a way to survive. Not always, not in every single scenario, lying is the worst thing to do. If it keeps a person who is truly interested in living alive, I don't know if lying is in every single instance the worst thing to do. But anyway, that is already way too much of a controversial statement. So moving on. moving on. Moving on way too much. Way too fast from that. But yeah, I guess change and be willing to change. Be changed and change things also. Don't die by refusing to change. It's better to live another day, even if a little bit unhappier, than to never again experience this world just because we cannot accept that things might not be as they used to be before. You know? Something along those lines. Anyway, let me ring Walter. Thank you. Okay. Um, I think that's it for real. I truly don't have anything else to add. Yeah, yeah. So moving on to the final idea. I guess we are on. I guess this is a little bit simpler, a little bit more complicated. Also, I I have always to clarify these sort of things as in plural, because it does happen. I do have more than anything else a background in psychology. That's why somehow we are talking about something that is far more psychological than philosophical. But yeah, uh, the idea is third final idea for today is comedy as a relief. And the original title was a little bit longer. It was something think it was something along the lines of when comedy becomes a relief for life, something along those lines. The idea itself is, yeah, one of the most wonderful ways in which we can actually cope with the reality. In this case, I do want to utilize the word cope. It is one of the many coping mechanisms that are available to us. And I will say, I don't know if it is the healthiest one. I will assume complete integration of reality itself is far better than to just cope with it. But if we have to cope in any way, it's far better to understand things and to do or coping through comedy than to be tormented through any kind of addiction or any other method in which we slowly also self destruct ourselves. Comedy is far much better of a method than the rest of the coping mechanisms, in my own perception. Unavoidably, I guess we still haven't even defined things enough, but some caveats are unavoidably. Oh, yeah, yeah, completely self deprecating comedy, is that good? I don't know if that is good. Completely self. The comedian who can only be a self-defeating person who can never say something good about themselves because they can only hide behind those jokes that make themselves lesser in order to never have to realize that they might be doing something right, that they might be actually doing something great, that they might be saying something that actually matters. I don't know if that is good, but once again, I'm not always analyzing things on the deepest level. In a basic analysis, comedy is one of the most fundamental parts of our life. It's, I would say, probably impossible to get to know somebody who doesn't laugh, even for the people, as far as I remember, even for the people who possess brain trauma big enough to have the different areas in their brain that process those more metaphorical aspects of life, which can allow things like double entendres and such. Even for those people, comedy doesn't stop being a reality. Comedy is not something that we can completely eliminate, no matter how much we want to, I guess. Unavoidably, yeah. Also, the parenthesis is, yeah, if you are completely depressed, maybe you are not going to be laughing. But we're not talking about that either. We're talking about, yeah, comedy is an integral part of life. And it does play quite a huge role in our existence. The jokes, the funny things, the happiness of life. That is a continuous exercise. And in many ways, there are different types of comedy, yeah. Let's begin with that. There are different ways of engaging with this question of, oh, wow, yeah, you know what? I do want to think out something that is funny. I do want to think out things that might be interesting. I do want to think out stuff that might be positive to my own existence. And I might be capable of realizing that sometimes, yeah, I have stuff that I actually care about enough that even if I cannot actually say it, I can at the very least joke about that. And we can, this general consensus and this implied messages. One of the most wonderful things is we can imply a lot with jokes. We can imply a lot with the things that we joke about. And we can say a lot of things about everything to some degree. Because I guess you can utilize that what I have been describing before about the post-modernity, yeah, to some degree, not only is everything available to doubt, but also everything is available to be soaked about also, because nothing is as sacred anymore. No particular topic is as completely untouchable anymore. Unavoidably, yeah, you have to properly know how to do that. It doesn't mean that I can make a joke about dying and make it be the funniest thing. Like, I cannot make a joke about infants and make it be the thing that makes every single person laugh. To be a proper comedian, I guess, is a completely different topic. But yeah, everything has also become a thing that can be utilized for comedy, for com- comedic relief to some degree. And try, trying to not diversify so much the topic. Yes, in a way, it's a wonderful thing that we get to have that. And in a way, it's a wonderful thing that we get to actually be capable of talking about this stuff in that manner rather than having to only suffer the most recent aspects of life. And it's far better to have these sort of tools available to us. But it is still quite a crazy realization that, in many ways, sadly, it doesn't have to deal with post modernity, modernity itself. That has been a constant throughout the whole existence of the human being. One of the many things that does happen is once you slowly maturate, once you reach maturity, once you become an adult, you are we were supposed to, yes, not be as willful as Soyuz. It might have even been seen as a negative thing to actually love so much about everything, to be so capable of making a joke about any topic. Sadly, yeah, one of the many realities of this world is that actually, truly, throughout time, throughout cultures, we have always perpetuated no, 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 no. Comedy exists as a relief. Comedy exists as a thing that works for us. But it's far better to never have comedy if it is possible for us. If we can always confront reality, we shall do that. If we can always confront things, we shall always do that. Comedy plays a far more important role in our lives than what we can actually realize. There is nothing funnier to see than to realize that, yeah, in many ways, something that is incredibly understated is, even today, in this quote unquote open society, quote unquote world in which everybody gets to talk about whatever they want, many things are still in that realm of quote unquote sacredness and can only be taken out, even if just for a second, by the soak, by that quick whip, that quick, rapid soak about a thing. And that is far more useful than to, oh yeah, let's spend 20 years trying to actually make a change. Not everything needs to. I said before, we're not ready to change literally everything about ourselves. I wish we were capable of doing that. I hoped, I, my, if I had a wish, and just one, it would be that everybody got to change actually the way in which they wanted and nothing else. That will be the most wonderful thing, but that doesn't happen. That doesn't get to be the reality. Therefore, it's necessary for us to do things in a slow way, in a proper way. And sadly, not all of this world is capable to be discussed, is capable of being addressed directly. So, in this quote unquote confrontative manner, where no joke is allowed of the seriousness of adulthood and such. So, at the very least, we have the access to comedy. At the very least, we have the access to those jokes, those quick satires that get to make fun out of things that, yeah, otherwise are incredibly dark. And that's better than anything else. Because once again, this is, in a general sense, it's nothing because it's something that has always been part of our life and that will always be. But yeah, I guess you can say it's an ode to that eternal process and a proper respect for that thing which happens so much and which deserves to keep on happening. It's, I, in a way, one of the many realizations that comes with it's not a maturity. It's enough understanding out the world itself. Yeah, I can still talk about the stuff. Like I do so can do so in a way in which it actually makes me happy, not just gives me a second of relief. Sometimes a love is 1,000 times better than tears. Not because it's not proper for us as adults to cry, but rather because not everything needs to be processed to that process itself of mourning as we like it so much in this current world. And furthermore, so much more clearly, I said before, from that other perspective, even in times in which hardships exist, it's far easier to accept a joke here and there, to be willing to joke about the stuff, even in dark times, rather than to never be capable of admitting that, yeah, even in complicated times, we can still laugh. It's something I don't know. I want to say it's a oh wow, such a conclusion. It's an unavoidable realization for anybody. It's not something that anybody deserves to never again even try to think about laughing. To not deserve the right to make any kind of joke about anything. Not saying I'm not defending a complete debauchery towards literally everything. I'm saying that there is, or that we don't deserve to think that there are things that we can try to laugh about. Yeah, this world, even with all of its errors, even with all of its current dark things, is still a place in which we can have a great time. And if happiness isn't so accessible through that more delayed type of gratification that takes a lifetime to properly master, at the very least we get to have stuff like jokes. At the very least we get to have stuff like comedy. And yeah, it's nice to have that. It's better to have that than to have nothing at all, you know? But yeah, I don't know. Uh, I think that's it. I don't I don't have that much more to add. Thank you. Um, life, laugh. No, 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 no. What is the expression? Live, laugh, love. Something like that. Thank you. But yeah, anyway, the point is, we are done. I I am happy, so I'm fulfilled with everything that we got to talk about today. Um, what is even tomorrow? The thing that we're going to be, I think tomorrow we're going to be reading probably. I think so. I don't even know. I have to organize myself actually. But yeah, the point is, thank you for everything as always. Thanks. Thanks for the time, the patience, the interest, the willingness. And yeah, have a nice day. Have a nice life. Have a nice night. Um, for the discussion, I didn't say much, but yeah, thank you. Whoa. Anyways, I guess, as always, thanks for all. And yeah, even if we don't get to see us next time, it was still a wonderful time. So, no, what matters more is actually, yeah, be happy, Be happy, be joyous, be responsible, do all of those other things. And yeah, I don't know. Hire it also, but yeah, that's it for me. Good night.